Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. I'm Eric, and today I want to tell you my story. It's about someone I had known for years, someone I trusted, someone I was planning to marry. But then, in a single moment, everything changed. And that moment? It didn't just show me who she really was. It showed me what I had been ignoring for far too long. Now, before I get into what happened, I want to take you back to the beginning, to when things were good. Because, believe it or not, they were good. At least, that's what I thought. Vanessa and I had been together for a long time. We weren't some couple that rushed into things. We had history. I supported her through every stage of her life, long before she landed her dream job at a top consulting firm. Back when she was struggling to find her footing, trying to figure out her next step, I was right there by her side. I encouraged her, helped her prep for interviews, and stayed up late listening to her vent about rejection emails. I believed in her, even when she doubted herself. And I never once made her feel like she wasn't good enough. Photography has always been my dream. It wasn't just a hobby for me, it was my career, my passion, my life. I had invested everything into it. I worked hard, saved up, and bought the best camera gear I could afford. I built a strong portfolio from scratch, going from shooting small local events to getting my work featured in well-known magazines. And I wasn't just scraping by. I was doing well. I was proud of what I had built. At first, Vanessa was proud of me too. I remember the way she used to talk about my work. She would tell people, "Eric is insanely talented. His photos are incredible." She'd show my pictures off to friends and brag about the time my work got published. I really thought she saw me for who I was, someone who had turned his passion into something real, something meaningful. I had no reason to believe that would ever change. But then, little by little, it did. At first, it was little comments that I didn't pay much attention to. Vanessa had just started her new job at a consulting firm, and I knew she was under a lot of pressure. Long hours, important clients, and a whole new world she was trying to adjust to. I figured if she was a little stressed, I could handle it. But then, the way she talked about my work started to change. It wasn't outright disrespectful, at least not at first. The first time it happened, we were at dinner, going over wedding plans. I was excited, talking about a new camera lens I had been saving up for. She sighed and said, "You should get a real job with a stable salary. Weddings are expensive, you know." She laughed after she said it like it was a joke. I didn't think much of it. Then, a few weeks later, we were out at a mall when she spotted a coworker. She waved at her, but didn't call me over right away. When she came back to me, she said she didn't call me over to greet her because she didn't know how she introduced me to her colleague. I remember just standing there, confused. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself she just meant it in a light-hearted way. But then, the third time, there was no mistaking what she meant. We were at home, just having a normal conversation, when she suddenly said, photography is nice and all, but it's not exactly a career, right?" She said it casually, like she wasn't even thinking about how it sounded. That was the moment it hit me. She wasn't joking. She actually believed that. She saw what I did, what I built from the ground up, as some side hobby, not a real profession. Still, I let it slide. I made excuses for her, convincing myself that she didn't mean any harm. After all, this was Vanessa, the woman I had loved for years. She had always supported me before. So I let it go. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. But looking back, that was my first mistake. Vanessa invites me as her plus one to her company's annual office party. The venue was upscale, a private event hall with glass walls, modern decor, and a sea of well-dressed professionals who looked like they belonged there. Everyone had the same polished confidence and the same easy smiles. I wasn't intimidated, not exactly, but I could feel the difference between their world and mine. The way they moved, the way they talked, it was all about deals, promotions, and six-figure salaries. I knew I didn't fit that mold, but I wasn't ashamed of what I did. I loved my work. Vanessa had introduced me to a small group of her colleagues, 4 or 5 of them, all holding drinks, chatting about work and travel. I stood beside her, nodding along as they talked about an upcoming project with some big-name clients. Then, one of them, a guy in a crisp navy suit, probably around our age, turned to me, and asked, "So Eric, what do you do?" His tone was polite, but I could already tell he had assumptions about me. Maybe he thought I worked in consulting, maybe in tech, something that fit the environment we were in. Before I could answer, Vanessa beat me to it. She let out this small, amused scoff, the kind that makes it clear she's about to say something funny. "Oh, Eric," she said, smiling as she swirled her drink. "His job is basically just taking fancy selfies for money." The second those words left her mouth, the entire group laughed. This was full-on amusement, like she had just told the joke of the night. Some of them exchanged glances, smirking like they suddenly understood something about me that they hadn't before. One of the women even nodded and said, "Oh, that's cute." I stood there, feeling the laughter pressing around me, and for the first time, I saw Vanessa clearly. This wasn't just a slip-up, not an innocent joke. This was how she actually saw me, how she had probably always seen me. In her eyes, I was just a guy who took selfies for money. It hit me hard. All those small comments she had made before, the passive-aggressive remarks, the way she hesitated when people asked what I did, it all made sense now. She wasn't proud of me. She wasn't proud to be with me. To her, my career wasn't real, wasn't respectable enough to stand beside hers. And in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to spend my life with someone who looked down on me. I remember standing there, gripping my drink a little tighter than before, and then I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I set my drink down, looked Vanessa straight in the eye, and said, "If you don't respect what I do, then you don't respect me. And I won't spend my life with someone who belittles me." The room went dead silent. I could feel eyes shifting between me and Vanessa, waiting to see how she would respond. And there she was, staring at me with wide eyes, her mouth opening slightly before curving into a nervous laugh. Like she could still laugh this off. But I wasn't laughing. I reached for her finger, pulled off the engagement ring, and put it into my pocket. Gasps. A couple of whispers. Someone near the bar muttered, "Damn." But I didn't linger to soak in their reactions. I didn't need an audience for this. Without another word, I turned and walked out. Just a quiet, deliberate decision to remove myself from a place where I clearly wasn't valued. I didn't look back to see her face. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly where I stood. At first, Vanessa didn't reach out. Not a single text. Not a single call. Nothing. And honestly, I wasn't surprised. She had always been too proud to admit when she was wrong. Too proud to face any situation that made her look bad. After the party, she must have felt humiliated, not just because I left her standing there in front of her friends, but because I did it on my own terms. I wasn't the one being laughed at anymore. I was the one who walked away. And for someone like Vanessa, who cared so much about appearances, that had to sting. But then, weeks later, the silence broke. Out of nowhere, she sent a message. It was long, but the words were predictable. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I didn't mean it like that. You know I respect you. I was just joking, and I didn't realize how it came across. Can we talk?" I read it and just sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. If she had sent this message right after the party, maybe, just maybe, I would have believed she meant it. Maybe I would have thought she had a moment of poor judgment and was genuinely sorry. But after weeks of silence? After acting like nothing happened? No, this wasn't about regret. This was about damage control. She wasn't reaching out because she realized she had disrespected me. She was reaching out because she didn't like how it made her look to friends and family expecting to be at our wedding. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I just saw things clearly for the first time. Vanessa had never been proud of me. She had tolerated my career, but she had never truly respected it. She wanted a fiancé who fit into her world, someone she could show off at work, someone who had a title she wouldn't have to explain. And that wasn't me. It had never been me. So I replied, not out of spite, not to argue, but just to close that chapter. "I appreciate the message. I wish you all the best, Vanessa. I really do. But it's best if we both move on." Short, simple, and final. She didn't respond, and I knew she wouldn't. That was the moment I knew I deserved better. I deserved someone who didn't just put up with my dreams, but actually believed in them. Someone who would never laugh at my passion, whether we were alone or in a room full of people. And once I accepted that I knew what I had to do next, I packed my bags and left. Our small town had been my comfort zone for too long, and I wasn't going to sit there, haunted by memories of a life that almost happened. I had always dreamed about taking my photography to the next level, and there was only one place I knew I could do that: New York. It was intimidating, it was expensive, but for the first time in a long time, I was making a decision purely for me. No compromises, no doubts, just a man chasing what he loves. And that felt like real freedom. I started saying yes to every opportunity: fashion shoots, events, travel gigs, anything that would challenge me and expand my portfolio. I worked harder than ever, but this time it felt different. It felt like I was building something that was mine, something no one could belittle. Months passed, and I wasn't just getting by, I was thriving. Then one day, I got an email that changed everything. One of my photographs had been shortlisted for a major international award. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. I reread the email 3 times just to make sure. But no, it was real. Out of thousands of entries from all over the world, my work had been chosen. And when I finally saw my name listed as the winner, I just sat there, staring at the screen. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because I could. I had always believed in myself, even when others didn't. And now, the world was seeing what I had always known. I was damn good at what I do. I don't know if Vanessa ever saw the news. Maybe she regretted how things ended. Or maybe she convinced herself that she was right all along. But honestly, I don't care. That part of my life is closed. What I do know is this: out of everything I gained after walking away, the biggest win wasn't the award. It wasn't the recognition. It was the fact that, for the first time in a long time, I was surrounded by people who actually valued me. People who saw my work for what it was: art, not just fancy selfies. And among them was someone who didn't just admire what I did, but respected it. Someone who saw me for who I was and never once made me feel small for it. Respect in a relationship is non-negotiable. That's something I learned the hard way. When someone repeatedly makes fun of your dreams, even if they laugh while saying it, even if they call it a joke, you need to pay attention. Because jokes like that, they're not harmless. They tell you exactly how that person sees you. And if they don't respect what you do, they don't respect you. Period. I told myself it was nothing, that she didn't mean it, that maybe I was being too sensitive. But looking back, I see it clearly. Someone who loves you doesn't belittle what makes you happy. They don't make you feel small just because your path doesn't look like theirs. I walked away because I knew staying meant losing myself. And trust me, it was hard. Ending an engagement in front of a room full of people? Not exactly how I pictured things going. But I'll tell you this: I have never once regretted choosing my self-respect over a relationship that made me feel like I wasn't enough. So if you're in a situation like that, if you're with someone who constantly downplays your passion, take a step back and ask yourself, do I really want to spend my life proving my worth to someone who refuses to see it? Because you don't have to. The right person will see your value without you having to convince them. Anyway, that's my story. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with something like this? What would you have done in my place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you found this story interesting, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. So, picture this. It's just another normal evening in my house. My son, Caleb, is upstairs finishing his homework. Meanwhile, it's just me and Lauren, my wife of 6 years, sitting at the dinner table. I'd love to say we were having a deep, meaningful conversation, but the truth? It was dead silent. She barely touched her food, just pushing it around with her fork like she was lost in thought. At first, I assumed maybe she had a rough day, or she was just tired. But the way she kept avoiding eye contact, something was off. So I finally spoke up. Everything okay? She stopped moving. Then she looked up at me, and that was the moment everything changed. I think we should try an open marriage, she said. I swear, for a second I thought I misheard her. I blinked, my brain scrambling to make sense of what she just said. What? She didn't even hesitate or laugh. She just leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, and said, I just think maybe we should have more freedom. Explore things. It could make our relationship stronger. Stronger? My mind was racing, but at the same time it felt like everything just slowed down. There was no shame in her voice, no guilt. It wasn't like she was testing the waters or worried about my reaction. She had already made up her mind. And that's what scared me the most. I could have blown up right there. I could have demanded to know what she was thinking if there was already someone else, if I was just the last to find out. But I didn't. Instead, I just sat there for a moment. When I finally spoke, my voice came out calm, steady. That's not the marriage I signed up for. I kept my eyes locked on hers. If you're tired of this, just say it. She didn't flinch, didn't waver. She just shrugged and said, I figured you'd say that. Then, just like that, she stood up, picked up her plate, and walked away. It was like she had already moved on in her head. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a conversation. It wasn't even a request. It was a decision she had already made. She wasn't waiting to see what I thought about it. She was just informing me. And later, I found out exactly where this was coming from. Lauren had a friend who did the same thing, talked her husband into opening their marriage while still keeping his money, his home, and his stability. And Lauren? She had been watching, waiting, imagining herself in that exact situation. She wanted the best of both worlds. A husband for security, other men for excitement. And the worst part? She actually thought I'd be okay with it. The next morning, I woke up to an unfamiliar silence. No good morning from Lauren, just silence. When I walked into the kitchen, she was already there, coffee in hand, scrolling through her phone like I wasn't even standing in the same room. I waited for some kind of acknowledgement, a glance, a nod, a single word. Nothing. Usually, we at least exchanged a simple "have a good day" before leaving for work. Not today. When I finally said, "Morning," she didn't even look up. Just took a sip of her coffee and kept scrolling. That day at work, I checked my phone a few times, expecting maybe a casual text from her. Again, nothing. No updates, no check-ins, and no questions about how my day was going. It was like I didn't exist. That night at dinner, the distance between us felt physical, like there was a wall between our seats at the table. I tried to talk to her, but her responses were short, clipped, and lifeless. Okay. Yeah. That was all I got. The woman I had shared my life with for 6 years now treated me like a stranger. And the worst part? She didn't seem to care. Over the next few days, the cold shoulder turned into something worse. Lauren stopped pretending altogether. If she wasn't ignoring me, she was being openly disrespectful. Sitting on the couch next to me, texting someone and smiling down at her phone like a teenager in love. I could see the glow on her face, the way her fingers typed fast like she was fully engaged in whatever conversation she was having. When I asked, "Who are you talking to?" she rolled her eyes and muttered, "No one." No one? Right. She started going out more, dressing up like she was single. Fancy outfits, taking extra time on her hair and makeup. If I asked where she was going, her answers were vague at best. Out with friends, she'd say, slipping on her heels. If I pushed for details, she'd just grab her purse and mutter, "Why do you care?" before slamming the door. Some nights, she didn't come home at all. No text, no call, no explanation. The next morning, she would walk in like nothing happened, head straight to the bathroom, and then crawl into bed without a word. I could smell alcohol, but I kept my cool because I knew what would happen if I said anything. She'd just roll her eyes, laugh in my face, and tell me I was paranoid. One night, when I had finally had enough, I stood in the doorway as she walked in, my arms crossed. "Lauren, we need to talk." She looked up at me, smirked, then laughed. "No, we don't," she said, brushing past me. Then she walked into the bedroom and shut the door in my face. That was when I realized this wasn't just indifference. It was intentional. She wanted me to feel worthless. It's one thing to feel like your wife doesn't care about you anymore. It's another thing when your child starts noticing it too. One evening, I was standing in the kitchen clearing the dinner table when Caleb looked up at me with his big, curious eyes. "Dad, why doesn't Lauren eat with us anymore?" For a second, I didn't know how to answer. How do you explain to an 11-year-old that the woman he considers family doesn't care about sitting at the same table as us anymore? That she chooses to ignore us? I forced a smile, ruffling his hair. "She's just been busy, buddy." He nodded, not questioning it. But the way he looked at me, he probably knew I was lying. That night, after Caleb went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, staring at nothing. I felt like a ghost in my own home, like I was slowly disappearing, and Lauren didn't even have the decency to pretend to care. I got to my breaking point one night. It was late, 2 a.m. to be exact, when I woke up to the sound of quiet giggles beside me. At first, I was disoriented, half asleep. I turned my head, blinking through the darkness, and there was Lauren, lying next to me in bed, her phone screen glowing in the dim room. Her face was lit up. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched. She was texting someone, scrolling, laughing softly to herself, completely unaware that I was awake. Or maybe she knew, but she just didn't care anymore. Something inside me snapped right then and there. Up until that moment, I had been holding on, trying to rationalize her behavior, telling myself that maybe this was just a phase. But watching her in that moment, smiling at another man through a screen while lying in our bed, made something very clear to me. She wasn't coming back. And more than that, she thought I would just sit there and take it. Not anymore, I told myself. I refused to be a placeholder. The next morning, while Lauren was still asleep, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to leave with a plan. From that moment on, I started documenting everything. Every late night she came home without an explanation. Every time she ignored my questions with a dismissive, "Why do you care?" Then I got my one chance. Lauren left her phone unattended for a few minutes, and I took it. I opened her messages, took screenshots of every conversation she had with the men she was flirting with, and sent them to myself. I saved the proof because I wasn't going to let her twist the story when I walked away. Then I took the next step. I contacted a lawyer. I wanted to know my options and what I needed to do to make sure I had everything in place before I left. I wasn't just walking away. I was making sure Lauren would have no hold over me once I was gone. After that, I spoke to my boss. I had been wanting to transfer to another state for a while now, but I had never gone through with it because of Lauren. Now, that hesitation was gone. My boss approved it almost immediately. The last thing I did, I secured an apartment in my new city. Everything was set. A fresh start was waiting. All I had to do now was wait for the perfect moment. Leaving wasn't something I could do overnight. I had to be patient and watch. And what I saw only confirmed my decision. Lauren spiraled deeper into selfishness. She wasn't even pretending anymore. She made no effort to hide her disinterest, her disrespect. She left when she wanted and came back when she felt like it. If I asked a question, she looked at me like I was annoying her. And Caleb? She barely acknowledged him, although he is not her biological child. It was like he didn't exist to her. She was so focused on chasing the life she thought she deserved that she didn't even care about the boy who lived under the same roof as her. That was when I knew it was time to go. Lauren probably woke up late the morning we left. She had gotten comfortable in her routine, sleeping in, taking her time before rolling out of bed, knowing she didn't have to rush for anything. But then, she would have noticed something. The house was too quiet. Maybe at first, she wouldn't think much of it. But as she moves through the house, she will notice the little details. She will find the final piece when she wanders into the kitchen for her morning cup of coffee, which she takes every morning. I set the envelope on the kitchen counter, right beside the coffee machine. I knew she would find it there, the moment she reached for her first cup of the day. Inside, the divorce papers. And right on top of it, a small sticky note in my handwriting. I hope you find the freedom you wanted. I can only imagine her reaction. I didn't know. And honestly, I didn't care. Because there's no need. After I left, Lauren never called. Not once. She never reached out pretending to care. If there was any part of her that missed me, or even the life we had built together, it wasn't enough for her to pick up the phone. She didn't care. The only time I finally heard from her was through a lawyer. Not a phone call. Not a message. A formal legal demand with her name stamped at the bottom. And what was she after? Money. She didn't want to know how I was doing. She didn't want to fix things. She just wanted to pay out. Lauren wasn't interested in fighting for Caleb. He was never hers to begin with. She had never truly stepped into the role of a mother. And when I walked away, she didn't even try to pretend she wanted custody. But what she did want, my money. Her lawyer's letter laid out her demands like a grocery list. A lump sum payment to compensate her for the years we were married. Alimony, even though she was fully capable of working. And the most ridiculous part? Half of my assets. She actually believed that after everything she had done, I would still be responsible for maintaining her lifestyle. It was almost laughable. The entitlement. The sheer audacity. She wasn't asking for what was fair. She was asking to be rewarded for treating me like garbage. But I had no intention of playing along. Walking into that courtroom, I already knew how this was going to end. I had spent months preparing, gathering every piece of evidence I needed to make sure she didn't get a single cent from me. I had documented her late nights, her indifference, her blatant disrespect. I had saved screenshots of her messages with other men, proving that this wasn't just an emotional disconnect. She had already moved on before she even asked for an open marriage. When my lawyer laid everything out, it wasn't even a fight. The judge took one look at the case and ruled in my favor. Lauren got nothing. She had spent so much time acting like I was disposable, convinced that I would either stay and tolerate her behavior or leave and still be financially obligated to her. But now, she had gambled and lost everything. She had no one to blame but herself. It had been over 2 years since I walked away. 2 years since Caleb and I packed up and left that house behind. In all that time, Lauren never reached out. She was perfectly fine with it, and I had moved on. I wouldn't say I was completely healed, but I was better. I was no longer waiting for an apology or some last-minute realization from her. I had come to terms with the fact that there would never be closure. Then, out of nowhere, my phone rang. I was in the middle of making dinner when I saw the name flash across my screen. Lauren. I had no idea why I didn't delete her number. For a second, I just stared at it. My fingers hovered over the screen, debating whether to pick it up or just let it ring out. What could she possibly want now? Part of me already knew. People like Lauren only reach out when they want something. Finally, I answered. George. Her voice was different. There was none of the confidence she once carried, none of the dismissiveness she had when she walked away from our marriage. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I let the words hang between us. I could hear the hesitation in her breathing, like she wasn't sure if I was going to hang up or hear her out. I was selfish, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought you would always be there. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. There it was. The realization came far too late. Then, after a long pause, she said the words I knew were coming. I miss you. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just nothing. I exhaled, my voice calm, steady. Do you miss me? Or do you miss the fact that I loved you even when you didn't deserve it? The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. She tried again, her voice breaking. George, please. But I had already made up my mind. I wasn't that man anymore. The one who waited, who hoped, who let himself be an afterthought in his own marriage. Lauren, I hope you heal. But I'm not coming back. I hung up. For the first time in years, I felt free.